Hi, everybody, and welcome back. This is our second cast with Jackie Bouse, my daughter. Welcome back, Jackie.
Thank you for having me again.
Appreciate it. And for anybody who hasn't already seen the episode, Jackie and I recorded an episode on marketing internships. So be sure to check that out. We'll provide it in the links below. And today's topic, we really wanted to talk about customer marketing, which is its own specialty in the marketing field. And so we thought we would share a little bit about that for, again, our target small businesses, medium-sized businesses, nonprofits who might need a little bit of insight into how mature marketing organizations basically staff up, especially when you're getting ready to scale and you need some specialties within the marketing department beyond lead gen and communications. So thanks, Jackie. So maybe one of the things we should start with is really helping people understand what is customer marketing.
Sure. And just for a little bit of background, because you might be saying, what does she know about customer marketing? It has been my specific niche field for the past couple years. And it's one that I've really sort of fell into, but has been so rewarding in so many ways. And it's something that I didn't learn in school and I didn't hear about it through other companies. It's something that is really sort of different in the marketing world. And how I would define customer marketing, because you might be like, wait, customer, they've already closed. Like, why would we need to market to them? Marketing is top of funnel. It's like, whatever. No, customer marketing is looking at our existing customer base and leveraging and nurturing those experiences to improve retention, because we want those people to renew or buy again or be a repeat customer, and growth. So this can also influence top of funnel as well. Even though we're dealing with people who have bought something, their experiences are the ones that sort of really influence the top of funnel. So customer marketing is really sort of like an end-to-end marketing niche that influences both the long-term revenue through renewals or repeat buyers with happy customers, but also using those experiences, getting customers to talk about logo usage, case studies, cabs. We're going to be talking about a lot of those things today, and having that influence sales conversations, social media, logos on website, that sort of function of itself that goes beyond the company saying, here's why we're awesome. Because then people go, okay, but you're kind of like, what would you say else? You know,
About yourself, right?
These are the people who love your product. And then the market goes, okay, XYZ companies are interested. Maybe it'd be a right fit for me.
I love that. So I think I also hear you saying that you wind up being involved then in the entire customer life cycle, right? So from the time that they sign on, and hopefully forever, hopefully they never leave, but you're involved in all those touch points with them from that point on, whether it's communications or events or whatever the tactic might be, you're really kind of at this epicenter of all those activities.
Yes, exactly. And there's so many different things within customer marketing. There's several buckets that we'll talk about. There's more beyond this. Like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about cabs, customer advisory boards. We're going to be looking at onboarding resources and best practices, and also making communities for customers, if that makes sense for your business.
Wow.
And as well as looking at what are case studies. You know, you might see on the website a quote from somebody saying how much they love your product. This is about taking it to the next step and next level and doing a full interview with the customer that is approved, that you can piecemeal and use in various ways that make sense for your buyers. So there's a lot of things, and those are the top three. There's more. Those are the top three that we'll talk about today.
Okay. I'm really curious because you're talking about probably coordinating with the customer in advance that you're going to want to do those kinds of work products, right? And so do you wind up building that into the sales contract? Is that something that you negotiate one-on-one? Kind of what kind of infrastructure is in place to start the conversation where you actually feel like you can go to them and ask for their help in something like a case study?
Yes. So there's a couple different ways that I'm familiar with. So one of the easiest ways is to get it written into a contract.
Okay.
It's hard to do when you're like an Etsy buyer and you're selling like a commodity in a way that you sell and it's gone. This is more for if you're really looking to sell a product or a technology or something that you want people to come in and say, this is great and please buy or please consider us. Have it written into the contract with the customer. We have marketing support language that we use that highlights, here are the ways that we want to promote you. Things like logo on website, being a reference account in sales opportunities, being a speaker at events, doing case studies. Would you be open to being listed on an investor relations call? Like, we put those in, and the customer, and that's normal language for us, and the customer will redline what they're uncomfortable with, or they might say yes, but with prior written consent, things like that. When it comes to working in this side of the business, having high ethics is really important, because if you don't care about those things and you get a customer and you use a logo or you reference them in something that they don't want, that could hurt the relationship. And then you're not going to have a repeat customer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which at the end of the day, when you're in customer marketing, yes, you're influencing growth and retention. At the end of the day, your business is making sure that the customers are happy, because you're not going to get people who are going to want to talk to you if they're not happy. So
Right.
when it's in the contract and they say, I really don't want to do this activity, don't force them. Or if it's something that they'll consider but's not finalized, talk to the person who has the closest relationship to the customer, whether it's a customer success manager, the AE, whoever it is, channel partner, and go, do you think that your customer would be open to doing something like this? And then they sort of take it from there, because they're the ones who have the relationship.
Okay.
So let's say that maybe you want to look at an activity that's not explicitly in the contract. I always recommend not just going forward and doing it. Like, maybe you don't know if you can use their logo on your website or on a piece of collateral. Don't just do it. What you should do is go to the executive who's in charge of the account or the customer success manager, whoever has the closest relationship and can understand the account the best, and ask them, do you think your customer would be open to us doing this? And then they'll give us the yes or no. Going that extra step, though, to make sure that everything is written, it's historical, it's written down, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I always make sure, like, let's say the AE calls the customer and they go, yeah, sure. Be like, great, can you get that in writing for me? So it's just a best business practice to have those things in writing, just in case, because someone might leave and then someone might come in and say, when and how did we agree to this? And they can pull it up and go, here it is. Here was the written consent, and then go from there. Okay. So it's just really good to have that there. Now, let's say that if you're a company that uses resellers, when it comes to the reseller agreement, it'll depend on if there's language in there saying that you can market with their end users. You as maybe like the technical company and they as the reseller with the relationships. If it's not in there, general best practice is you don't use the account. You go through the channel partner and you ask them, A, if they'd be comfortable, and also B, same thing with the AE, if they'd be willing to do an activity.
Okay.
And let's say that they're good with both. Get that in writing too. You want to have as much written down record of anything that in the future might need to be referenced readily available. So I always recommend getting it written down. The easiest ones, the most low-hanging fruit, I guess, for lack of a better term, are the ones that agree to it in the contract. Then you work with the customer, figure out the best time to do some of these activities.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. So do the channel partners ever wind up participating in the case studies, or do they reuse the case studies for some of their own purposes to help get more sales for your company?
Yes. So that is something that can be worked out as well. Normally, these contracts are with the end users, but let's say that it is through a channel partner. I always say, like, I want this to be sort of like a triangular relationship case study where we highlight not only the customer, but also our relationship with the channel partner, because it shows that we're good to work with.
Yeah.
And that there's a healthy relationship between getting a great product or great service to a customer, and that it's seamless and that we work together well.
Okay. I love that. That sounds brilliant.
Thank you.
Okay, so the relationships that you're building during these processes of coordinating with the customer about whether or not they're happy, et cetera, seems like it'd be a really good opportunity to create a way to have ongoing communications with them. One of the things that you mentioned was the concept of a customer advisory board, which those of us in marketing, we call it a CAB. And so can you share a little bit on your philosophy about CABs and maybe give some insights? I think even a small company can still lend themselves to having some sort of customer advisory board. They might want to change the size of it or the formality of it, but it seems to me it would be valuable for any company to have those kinds of insights.
Yeah, so customer advisory board, for those who maybe haven't really done one before or understand what it is, it really is taking sort of your top customers who love you and who want to see you succeed and you have a really great relationship with. It might not be just you as the customer marketing manager, but it could be sales. It could be you see that they're talking about you in the market. Look for those things that speak to these people go above and beyond when communicating and loving our product. Those people, as well as I would suggest some people who have struggled with you in the past. Maybe you've had a bit of a rocky relationship because you want to understand those pain points. You want the good things, the innovation, the thought leadership. You want the people to come in and say, we love this. Here's how you can make it better. And here's the gaps that we're noticing. Here's the things you're really doing well. And then also the group of people that, again, you've had that rocky road with, because it's important to understand the pain points so that you can address those. And so this is a group of customers that comes together, and the cadence is really up to the company. Some people do once a year, some people do twice a year, some people do quarterly. Don't make it a weekly thing, because then it'll turn into something completely different. It's not going to be a CAB.
Yeah.
Where you're getting regular feedback from these customers. Mm-hmm. So the CAB is really an opportunity where maybe you come to the plate with, we want to talk about, the direction of the company. We want to talk about how well the products are working. We want to introduce a new product before it goes to market to get feedback. Come to the CAB with a plan of what you want to talk about. Every quarter, it might be similar things. It could also be looking at the direction of the company, innovation, process. Come to the meeting with, these are the topics that we're going to go through today. And then have a portion at the end where they can speak up and talk about anything that might not have been on the agenda. But have a structure, and then have your core group of people that are a part of this CAB who are there every single time to create not only a greater relationship with your key people. These are important, high revenue, hopefully, customers that you want longevity with, as well as some of your customers who are really important, who might be struggling with you. Bring them together to not only show that the company is working towards continuous improvement, acknowledgement of great customers, acknowledgement that they might not do things well, but they're putting in the effort to do things greater, because it's harder to shift, right? So if you can take the feedback that your customers give you and start implementing it, that's how you're going to keep the customers that you have, and also address any pain points that maybe happen during deployment or first couple of years, and smooth that out for the new customers coming in. So I think CABs are really important for a feedback mechanism, but also for the customers. Like, why would a customer want to do that? Why would they want to take an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours out of their day if it's virtual, or fly across the country, fly across the world, whatever it is, to go to a CAB for 2 days? What's in it for them is that this is also an experience. You want this to be an experience for them, as well as a feedback mechanism. You want to take it above and beyond for them and recognize and show them that they're important to you, especially in such a transactional world that we're in, and show them your business means something to us. Your feedback means something to us. And here's why. We value you enough that we want you to be a part of this. You're basically becoming part of the company in a way and sort of feeding the next phase of the company.
Interesting. So one of the things, again, that we talked about was how important it is to have executives and product people cued in to these customer advisory boards so that they can get direct exposure to the customer feedback. Because so often enhancement requests and things like that become something that you enter into Salesforce. And if you're lucky, it winds up with the product owner and it may or may not get backlogged or whatever into the customer roadmaps. And so share a little bit of insight there in terms of exposure to the CAB. It's not just a marketing or a sales and marketing function. It really is something that needs to feed into thought leadership for the company and products. So can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so CABs are really a great opportunity for every facet of the company to get involved, including executives. So when it comes to CABs, there's generally two thoughts. For a small company, I think they can come together. There's generally like a thought leadership sort of direction of the company style CAB. These are sort of the ideas we have for taking our company to the next level. What do you think? And then there's another CAB that's more product focused.
Okay.
Like, here's the products that we have. What's great? What could be better? Here's the product roadmap. What do you think about that? A lot of people can marry those together, especially on a smaller scale. It might be beneficial when you get tens of thousands of customers to sort of split them up, or and have members who are a part of both, but definitely have different groups in there to get feedback on. But having the entire company involved is really important. You want product in there. You want customer success. You want anything related to deployment. You want people related to channel. You want anything that is going to touch the customer. You want your executives in there. And you want your executives in there because it's really important that the decision makers are hearing the feedback directly from the customers. You don't want to play the game of telephone because it also loses value as it moves from the customer to the customer marketing manager to the executive who might take it to another executive, and it might get lost, like you said. And they're the ones who can set the priority, right? They're the ones who can say, all right, we really need to work on XYZ thing. Or maybe we need to deprioritize this and move this up. They're the ones who are going to be doing that. Again, in a smaller business, it might be a little bit easier, but there's always going to be that person that's setting the motion. So you want that person involved directly with the customer. So even if they don't necessarily say a whole lot, obviously you want them to say things, but say a whole lot, not necessarily like the nitty gritty. Here's what we're talking about today, blah, 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 blah. They're the ones who are going to take it up and they're going to make things happen.
All right. That makes sense. So for 15 years, I've been on advisory boards and more on the thought leadership corporate level than on the product level. But certainly I tend to pick companies where I have product knowledge or market knowledge for where to be on an advisory board. I've seen that from both dimensions. And one of the things that I found really valuable, so word to the wise in terms of company ownership, if you're implementing a CAB and you're actually having these exposure to customers, use it as a two-way dialogue. Don't just have them spit out what's going on and what their thoughts are. Have an exchange of ideas and talk about what ifs and maybe have some hypothetical scenarios that you might carry through in the conversation to say, well, what if we did such and such? And what do you think about blah, blah, blah? And have it be a dynamic conversation. Because I have seen scenarios where it's more like, okay, you get the customer input and then it falls into a black hole and you miss the opportunity to actually have the conversation that helps you prioritize it, helps you figure out, is this a trend? Is this something to take action on now? Is this something to take action on later?
Right.
What might be the price point associated with this? Is this something that's worth our time to have that conversation? So if you can ask, what kind of impact would that have to your business? Is that thousands impact? Is that a millions impact? And just kind of having those kinds of conversations with them. That's a very kind of thought leadership, very high level executive conversation. That's super, super valuable. And to have product folks, marketing folks, customer success folks get to actually see and participate in those conversations is hugely valuable, because so many times there's so many layers of disconnect. And when you don't hear it directly from the customer, like you said, telephone game, right? Like things just get lost in translation. And, it's very dangerous to have a 5-minute long conversation about a feature with a customer, and then it goes into Salesforce as a sentence. The customer would like to see more, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, you lose it. And then also, what's more embarrassing than if the customer has to say the feedback over and over and over again, and it's not being communicated well enough.
Yeah.
So the customer will eventually get frustrated with you and go, unless you have some sort of backing for why you cannot pivot that way or cannot do it that way, if they just continuously talk into the void, they're not going to want to continue being on your cab, but also thinking about the long-term relationship that you have with this customer.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I had a strategic advisory board that I stepped away from because they didn't activate anything.
So it's like, what's the point? What am I doing here?
So they mostly had a board so that they could say that they had a board to their investors, but they didn't actually activate anything that the board suggested. And so that turned over in about 18 months. It was an entirely different group of people, because some of us were like, okay, this is a waste of our time. So so I really like the idea of the two-way conversation, two-way relationship, and leveraging that. I think is really, really powerful. That the insights that come from it, I think, are really great. I was thinking back to the conversation that we had about relationships. Again, just kind of, there's so much importance, I think, in customer relationship management beyond a CRM system, like the actual relationship. And one of the things that you shared with me was this concept of going where the customers are. So can you share a little bit more about that idea of engaging with customers, kind of meeting them where they are?
Yeah. So one of the things that can be included in a customer marketing role are the onboarding resources and experience side, working with customer enablement or your customer success team to actualize it and actually bring it to the customer, as well as having a community where your customers can engage with each other, learn from each other, as well as have that platform be a place where if you want to host webinars on best practices or bring in value add through guest speakers, things like that, sort of elevating the experience beyond the initial product also helps influence customers to continue to stay because they're getting more out of it than they thought they were going to. So those are some key ways. You got like onboarding, you have customer community. And for those things, it's really important because some people will want to say, all right, I want to build a whole new native platform somewhere, Salesforce, HubSpot, whatever it is, and drive my customers there to engage with each other. Now, I'm not saying not to try that. I'm not saying that that might not work for your business. I would suggest thinking about going where your customers are. That takes away one barrier, which in marketing, we want to reduce as much barriers to get through to what you want them to do as possible. And that still applies to your customers. So if you want customers to be looking at your onboarding deployment documentation that you've built, that's signage, social media logos, email templates, all that for communicating, as well as getting in there and starting to engage with people, you should be going where they are. Think about your customer persona and where they would be engaging. Where are they already getting a login in deployment? If they have an LMS, maybe consider seeing how much you can put on there because they're going to have to go there anyways. And that reduces the number of logins. It reduces the friction in terms of getting people to actually engage in that. As well as for a community, maybe that platform makes sense, but maybe you're noticing, like in the security industry, LinkedIn's really big, you know? So maybe look at things like LinkedIn, a private LinkedIn community where you can engage with people because they're already there. They can just log into the community and they can ask their questions or look and see what people have suggested or look and see what curated content is for them or webinars or whatever it is. And they can engage there versus having to go, oh crap, I have to go log into this other community to go look at this. When really it's just another page. We're in an era where there's just so much on the internet, so much that requires us to log into different things and be different places online. It can just get overwhelming, especially when your company is probably one of several in their ecosystem.
Makes sense.
Make it easy for them.
Yep, I like that. All right. So the thing I like about what you're saying with basically meeting them where they are is there's this whole trend around what they call single pane interface, PANE, not PAIN.
Mm-hmm.
And basically just trying to be where people are. It's the same concept with if people are already on Instagram, go on Instagram. If people are on Facebook, go to Facebook. If people are on LinkedIn, go to LinkedIn and try and be where they already are congregating online. And of course, that can be extended if it's a business that has an in-person service element to it. Same idea. Physically meet with them where they are. If that's a physical location, then come to them and have those engagements directly with them where they are so that it's not a heavy lift for them to have the relationship with you and to be able to communicate with you. And ultimately, they want a great relationship too. So it's not just a one-way thing. It's a symbiotic relationship.
If you're doing it right, yes, that's what you want.
Which I would hope everybody wants to do it right, right? So do you have any closing thoughts that you want to share in terms of either the focus of customer marketing or any best practices that you can share with the audience?
I would like to sort of close with customer marketing in general and why I think it's so important, especially in this current marketing economy with AI and all this stuff. And there's worry about certain jobs that are going to be taken over by Gen AI or whatever it is. I would say that the unique thing about customer marketing that companies should think about is this is something, and marketers should think about, is this is something that is hard, really hard to be taken over by AI because it has that personalized human touch with every single customer. You can use AI to help you, but when it comes to actually doing the job, it is something that I think is a niche market that companies should think about to make sure that you're continuing to have that value add relationship with your customer where they don't just feel like a number. They don't just feel like it's transactional. There is value to us here, and making sure that you have roles like that that are not just like a cost benefit analysis of it might be cheaper to have this here.
I love that.
Everybody's going that way. So I think an old school approach of having people involved in this is going to be really valuable. And for marketers, maybe even young people who are thinking about what fields they want to go into, I would consider maybe not social media because that's going to be taken over by AI before
highly automated. It's going to be all agents.
Not highly automated.
AI agents. Yep.
Think about something that's more related to things that require a human touch. And that's what I really like about customer marketing is that it's really hard, again, to be taken over. Again, AI can help, but when it comes to what the strategy is and execution, and it's complex, and it's also really fun. It's really different. I'd mentioned to Mark earlier, I was like, you think about customer marketing almost as its own smaller CMO because you're in charge of all these different things on sort of the renewal funnel. When you think about marketing, you have like your top of funnel close and people go, wait, there's more after that. There's a whole other world over here that can be really exciting and really fun to go out there and meet customers, learn their stories, and to provide them with something that other companies might not, and learn the pain points and what can you do with that. It's like a puzzle piece. And then also creating content and best practices and communities that provide value to them outside of just a transaction. There's just something sort of that feeds the soul. And there's a lot of ethics around it. You don't want to hurt the relationship with the customer, which AI might not care about. They're going to read things very black and white. And they're going to need someone who can look in the gray and go, all right, maybe this makes sense, maybe this doesn't. So I highly recommend companies think about this, as well as maybe some new marketers out there.
Okay, I love it. It also sounds like, because it is relationship driven and because it's person to person, it can also be a differentiator.
Yes.
Because there's more and more companies, especially tech companies. So you and I both, we work with high tech companies. And so there's a natural instinct to move towards automation and making things low lift and efficient, which is, of course, great from a business operations perspective. But if you can marry that with the ability to have actual relationships with customers, there's, communication, there's caring, there's like mutual investment in each other's success. It's a whole different game. And I also think it's one of the benefits for anything that's enterprise oriented, SaaS solutions, where you have like this natural instinct towards technology. Make sure that there's the relationship element on top, the human part of marketing, the human part of business development, and really using that as a differentiator as much as you can. If you're optimizing and you're creating a lot of efficiencies on the operations of the business, maybe take some of that savings and reinvest it in things that are very human-centric, things that are very relationship oriented, I think is a great outcome for some of these trends that are happening right now. Go ahead and leverage AI. Go ahead and do as much automation and agentic AI as you can, and that's fantastic. And then maybe redeploy those resources, those people, and retrain them for some of these things that really could be major competitive differentiators.
Completely 100% agree.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
I might be biased, but yes.
It's interesting because it really is like values based, right? So it makes sense that you and I would be aligned on that because our value systems are very similar, obviously, because we come from the same family. I think that these are things that companies would really do well to take heed and really think through this differentiation opportunity that they can have.
I agree.
All right. Awesome. Well, thanks for being on a second podcast with us. I'm sure that we'll do another one in the future.
Yeah, love it.
But really appreciate you being here and talking with the audience and giving them some insights about something that's lesser known when it comes to the marketing footprint. So really appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, thank you for having me. As always, these are always really fun. So I'm happy to do more. And hopefully our listeners find value in this, and always happy to engage with anybody on anything related to customer marketing.
All right, excellent. We'll be posting this video online. So also feel free to provide comments, and we will do our best to answer any questions that you might have. And we'll go from there.
Great.
All right, awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.